There are basically 4 key elements to life flourishing. Fire, the sun. When sun shines down on our earth and it's combined with earth and water and air, all of life flourishes. All of life flourishes. It's as though those elements come together to make a whole that is so much greater than those individual parts. The intelligence, when a seed goes into the ground, into the earth, and it swells with water in the darkness, it begins to swell. And somehow, by some act of grace, roots start to sprout out. And life force begins to rise and reach towards the light. And then that beautiful, tiny little seed begins to find its feet, literally, in the earth. And it begins to grow. And as it matures, it creates its own fruit. And in that fruiting, inside its own body, it has the seed for the next generation. And this cycle is consistently flowing. It's consistently moving and flourishing and creating itself in the physical world. And so, when these elements are in balance, this creative power of life just flourishes in ways that blow my mind. And I've actually witnessed this happening. And so this intelligence starts to give rise to so many vast expanses of food, of all sorts of animals and insects, and bacteria in the soil just begin to gather momentum. And our own creativity, when I began to live in direct relationship with nature in my world at the Lamas eco-village, life was pretty barren at the beginning. You'll see in a moment, I'll bring you to a slide, but watching that change as I gave attention and really brought in my own passions, my own ability to be spacious and vast, my direct connection with the earth, and allowing my emotions to flow freely without dumping, without projecting. In that process, there is this profound inner balance that begins to happen, and it's a microcosm, macrocosm. As I come into balance in myself, my environment starts to come into balance as well. And so when I look at the world around us, the bigger world, the world out there beyond, like here in Manchester, I see a world in chronic lack of balance. We have, our oceans are so depleted and even radioactive at this time. We have unbelievable greed rampaging on our planet. And it's all about me, 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 me. What can I get? What can I acquire? And that thinking, as we're so vibrantly aware, is outmoded. And it's time to come back into a heart-centered way of living and being. Now, how did this kind of industrial machine, this kind of decimation of nature and of life, this disregard for what's sacred, how did that begin? Well, I don't know about the hugeness in the world. It seems to have begun with the Industrial Revolution, with taking so many resources out of the earth. It seems to have started with that. And I know in the UK specifically, there was a planning policy, the next slide, sorry. There was a planning policy that was born after and in response to the trauma of the Second World War. Now, this planning policy was called the Town and Country Planning Act, and it literally was designed to centralize people into towns and cities and release the countryside so that huge amounts of monoculture, monocrops could be grown. But in that process, it disconnected our connection with life. And we started to live in these built-up environments, and we had a disconnect, and we started to buy our foods from supermarkets, and we didn't grow our own foods. And there was something that began to die in our humanity, certainly in the Western world. And we started to have this complete disconnect, and we're on a runaway train right now. We really are on a runaway train. And there's something, I live in Wales, as I've shared with you, and there's something very special beginning to happen with the Welsh Assembly Government. So the Welsh Assembly Government, historically, was at the forefront of the Industrial Revolution with the coal mines. And they really prided themselves in being able to feed this industrial development. And the irony is that the Welsh Government now is going, oh my God, what have we done? And they have created a policy, a planning policy, called One Planet Development. This is a revolutionary policy that is available because what it does is it reconnects us, human beings, directly with nature in the Western world. So we are, part of the planning policy is that we are required to generate our own electricity through sustainable means. We are required to build our own dream homes, our own dream buildings, using environmentally friendly, locally sourced, and recycled materials. And so this gives rise to a whole range of creativity. Now, this policy was the brainchild of a really inspirational woman called Jane Davidson, and she was the Minister for Sustainability and Housing, and I really want to credit her because this was the legacy, this was her legacy. And the One Planet development now has a One Planet Council. You mentioned councils a little while earlier, Ollie. Councils are really powerful things, and we birthed this One Planet Council to give authority to One Planet development. And so the Lamas project was born with 4 beautiful people: Tony Wrench, Tao Wimbush, Larch Dukes Maxey, and Chris, I can't remember his last name. He's not part of the project anymore. All 4 of these people worked so tirelessly and so hard because they were birthing this new baby. There is no money to be made from connecting economies with nature. There's no profit in it. The only wealth is in life flourishing. So you can imagine it's not that popular a policy with councils that are trying to move away from that and are still in the old paradigm, the old mindset. But Jane Davison was a real visionary woman, and she has created this opening. It's like an aperture that's available for us at this time. And I'm so delighted to share that this is gathering momentum powerfully. More and more and more and more people are choosing consciously to make the shift here in the UK, here in Wales. Scotland, as a government, is looking at this policy to adopt. Still, there's the old paradigm of structure. There's still the old paradigm of needing to control. And nevertheless, it's already been proven that it's possible. And so we bought, maybe 8-9 years ago now, marginalised grazing land out in the middle of nowhere in Pembrokeshire. Beautiful 76-acre site. We had about 15 acres of mixed woodland, and the rest was just grazing land. And we converted this pretty barren landscape just in 8 years to this. It is absolutely thriving. Everywhere you look, there is life flourishing. I have literally, before my very eyes, witnessed life giving rise to itself and becoming vibrant again. Everywhere I go, there are berries, there are nuts, there are flowers, there are pollinators. Everywhere I look, there is life giving rise to itself. And do you know what it all started with? Poo. It all started when we brought in animals. We brought in, geese, ducks, all sorts of different animals, cows, and we started to use manure, and that brought in the flies. And when the flies came in, birds came in to eat the flies. And when the birds came in, small mammals started to come in, and we created habitats for all of life. And only 7 years later, the whole project takes people's breath away. I often have people coming and visiting, and they burst into tears because they're reminded of what's possible. I can't tell you what a vibrant, beautiful place it is to live where I'm in control or I'm fed by energy. So all around, everywhere, through Lamas. There's probably 12 families now that are part of the Lamas eco-village. There's a lot of peripheral developments of One Planet development now. And every single one is completely unique. Every single one has a totally different flavor of expression because we are totally unique. And everyone is building their own beautiful homes in their own dream way. Timber frames, earth ships, roundhouses, all sorts of different earthy structures, very natural materials. We're also off-grid, so some houses have solar. We all have hydropower. And so for the first time ever in my life, my energy use is directly related to the sun and to the water. So when it rains, I'm in celebration. It's like, way, I've got loads of energy. This is fantastic. When it's sunshining, way, I've got loads of energy. So my relationship with the elements has changed. My relationship with the weather has changed. We grow our own firewood. So we cook on wood, cook on wood-fired wood burners, and we also heat our homes with wood. Short rotation coppice willow. There's no trees that need to be felled. Every 4 years, a willow sapling from this diameter can get to this kind of diameter and create all the firewood you could ever need. So there's no need to fell trees. And we, as I've mentioned, we just have so much food of all sorts of kinds. South American tubers, yacon, maca, mashua, oca, all sorts of different beautiful berries. We have loads of livestock. We have grapes, we have apricots, all sorts of things that you wouldn't even think were possible to grow in West Wales. It's an absolute abundance of natural wealth. And one of the key things about this policy is linking nature and the economy, linking those two together. There was a report made by the World Wildlife Fund, 2016. They did a summary. I couldn't read the full thing. It was absolutely pages long. But the summary report said that as a species, we have no choice but to link our economy with nature. If we don't do that, if we don't link how we earn our living with care and loving respect for nature, we're doomed. We don't have a choice. And so this is one of the reasons that I mentioned about all these beautiful hangings. These hangings and all the gorgeous artwork here all comes from indigenous people, and their handcrafts go into earning their living in order to look after the earth. So, and again, the next one, sorry. The other thing that I want to share is that we also have a community hub in the centre of our village, but it's proving too small for the needs. We were incredibly lucky to get a Department for Energy and Climate Change grant. And that grant, they gave us £350,000. It's an enormous amount of money. And then that department disappeared. It was disbanded. So it was essentially free money, and we have this amazing, beautiful building that is a place for tours, a place for courses, a place for meetings, celebrations, a place for all sorts of gatherings of people coming together. And we host volunteers from all over the world. We have volunteers that come from the Azores, from New Zealand, from all over Europe, all over South America. And it's like a hive of beautiful energy where people come and want to give for free. They just want to give for free and create this shining beacon of what's possible in the Western world. And this is really key because this is where I live. I live here in the UK, and I don't see many options. But there's so many possibilities of linking our economy with nature. Can you imagine the street out there if it was full of fruit trees? And if there were every little plant, little municipal garden, municipal roundabout was full of salads and vegetables and edible flowers. I mean, I love to play in my imagination with that kind of possibility. And it is beginning to happen in certain places around the world, thankfully. So I just want to share a little bit about my personal story and give you a little insight about what it's like to live a one planet life. And so I live with my partner, Wimbush, and we have a few different land-based businesses. So one of them is a micro dairy. We're one of the smallest registered dairies in the UK. We have 2 cows. And one of them, Blossom, she's about to calve. And this is why Tao couldn't come today, because she's literally any moment now going to drop. I'm expecting a call any moment now. And her brother, Cody, who's our bull, and he is actually, we're going to cull him shortly, very shortly when the calf comes, because we can't keep a bull. They're one of the most aggressive animals, and this is the reality of living on the earth. But he's such an exquisite soul. I have a really, really special relationship with him. So I've shared with him, I've meditated with him, and we've agreed, as far as I'm aware, that I'm going to be making a beautiful ceremonial drum from his skin. And so I've researched, and I'm creating a big, big powwow drum and honoring him and putting his spirit, his soul, into an exquisite way that will go on for generations and generations to come, and may always be played with love and with peace. I also have an organic skincare business, so I grow my own herbs, my own flowers, and one of my favorite things is to go into my garden and just drop to the level of all the flowers and just watch the numbers of bees. I don't know if you know how many bees we have in the UK. We have 287 species of bee, and only one of those is a bumblebee, and only one of those is the honeybee. So many bees. There's a bee called a furry-footed flower bee, and I've seen this bee. And a little while ago, I was playing with selling cut flowers, and I was going down into my garden to cut flowers at dawn. That's the best time to cut flowers. And I would find bees fast asleep inside the flowers, on their sides, all curled up. It's just mesmerizing, absolutely mesmerizing, and I feel such a privilege at having a direct contact with my world. One of the things that I'm really excited by, now that we have our roots on the ground, now that we have all our fruit trees, all our nut trees, our polytunnels, our ponds, and life is really, really flourishing. Now, the next steps that we're starting to make, we're starting to create healing spaces so that people can come and connect with nature, connect with what's real and what's true here in this world, but in an environment that's very conscious in encouraging and welcoming all life to deeply flourish. And everything in this space has been reclaimed or locally sourced or recycled. Everything in it, the windows, the timber, the floor, we've even got a washing machine window that's been engraved with a mandala, everything. And so it's a deeply nourishing space to come and just reconnect with what's real and what's true within yourself and within the natural world. The other thing that I'm very excited by, I mentioned earlier that the Lamas hub is proving too small, and it's also multi-space. It's used for many, many, many different functions. And so I had quite a big transition last year. I found myself, quite surprisingly, considering I live a one-planet life, going to India. I felt like I'd actually got out of alignment with my truth. I was creating organic skincare, I had micro dairy, but I felt there was something missing. And when we'd moved to West Wales, I'd put on hold my healing work and transformation work in order to build. And I actually got disconnected from that in the building process, to the extent that I lost touch. I lost touch with myself. There was all this absolute exquisite beauty around, but there was just something missing deep inside. And so I found myself being drawn, of all places on the earth, to India. And I went to a very holy place there, a place called Arunachala. And it's where many Indian sages have lived. So you know this place. It's a really powerful place. And I went through a huge deconstruct process of really deconstructing all aspects of ego and how ego had created separation within me. And I've had many ego deaths before, but never anything like this. And it was with no plant medicines or anything. It was just something that happened there. And I'd been going through a process of letting go of attachment to my children, letting go of attachment to my face on the front of this One Planet book, which I kind of felt quite uncomfortable about, in all truth. I let go of attachment to my relationship. I let go of attachment to my lifestyle. I had no clue. All I knew was that I wanted to live a life of deep service. And so I felt drawn to India, and I asked when I got there, and I was just in deep, deep meditation, okay, if I'm really to serve life, if I'm really, really to step up from this soul in service to humanity, what do I need to let go of? What's left? I don't know what else is left. And the answer that arose inside was, let go of life. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I love life. I love life. It's like, let go of life. So I did. And I experienced an ego death unlike anything I've ever experienced before. It was as if there was absolutely no one here. There was no thinking at all. But it wasn't blissful either. So other ego deaths that I've experienced have been incredibly blissful experiences, but there was no bliss, there was nothing. It was just like absolute death. Food went in, movement happened, speaking happened, no one here. I found myself going up Arunachala twice in one day, which is no light feat. Once first thing in the morning, and once with a sadhu that scooped me up from the bottom of the mountain. And I went up, and I sat on the mountain, and I'd just given everything. I had nothing left. And I really had no clue where I was going to be on the earth. I wasn't attached to the Lamas project. I wasn't attached to anything anymore. And I just said, okay, life, send me where you will. I really, wherever. I really, really, wherever. 10 minutes later, this man came up the mountain with his girlfriend. I recognized him from a cafe that I'd been frequenting while I was in Arunachala, in Tiruvannamalai. And we had a conversation, and it turned out he was English. We connected, as you do, and he asked me where I was from. I said, well, at the moment I live in Wales, but I don't know. It's a place near Cardigan. And he said, Cardigan? Well, that's really bizarre, because I've just spent all of yesterday with a dear friend of mine who is from Cardigan, and his mission in life is to reforest this holy mountain. He's bringing life back to sacred Arunachala. His name's Govinda. Do you know him? And I was like, no, I don't know him. He said, well, he was telling me about this amazing project called the Lamas project. And so I was sent back. But the form that it was in for me wasn't resonating. It wasn't fitting with my truth inside. And so I really went through quite a process last year of deep, deep soul searching, what needed to happen. And out of that process, I realized that I'm here to create something called the Lamas Earth Center, which you mentioned. And the pillars of that are One Planet Living, which is sustainable education, ways to connect, ways to empower people to be able to build small structures, humble structures in very easy ways, in ways that are very affordable. Understanding how to generate electricity in very simple ways, in ways that empower people at grassroots level. Ways to help people grow food simply, organically, naturally, and connect with plants at a very deep level, being able to communicate with our world. And then One Planet Healing is about the inner transformation. And this is where my soul comes alive, truly. Because for me, without the inner healing and without the inner transformation, it doesn't matter how green you might be in your mind, if you're not integrating the pain and the suffering and coming back to a place of heart-centered awareness, you can be as green as you like. There'll still be war being projected out. And so it's about the inner transformation that is needed. So I'm I've already created a conscious parenting course so that we can arrest this pattern of passing on unconscious habits to our children. We can start to connect our children in with nature, away from screens. And at the core of that is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is about being self-aware, self-reflective, being conscious about the impact that we have on each other and on our world. Also, out of this journey that I've been on is One Planet Being, which is about connection with the sacred. And I was invited to teach a year-long diploma in practical spirituality and wellness. And this is about really deepening our connection with the earth, with the cosmos, with our hearts, in our own unique and individual ways. So some people deeply connect with plant medicines. Some people deeply connect with Christian teachings, Sikh teachings, Hindu teachings. It's a universal qualification that enables you to meet people exactly where they're at and connect with the awe and wonder of life. So not just living it, but embodying it and practicing it as a daily practice. This is absolutely key. If we're to make real change, the change starts from within. And so enabling and empowering people to begin to become more conscious, stopping our negative patterns from being passed on to each other, the ways that we communicate, using our communication in conscious ways, in loving ways, whilst still speaking our truth. Creating this or understanding the difference between being a universal being and also being a me, an individuated aspect of consciousness. And the only way that we can create real truth in ourselves is if we're truthful with ourselves, first of all, about how we feel. And when we're truthful about how we feel, and we're able to communicate that with love and with clarity and with clear boundaries, and also being expanded, then we're able to respect and tolerate each other's differences, because that's really key. In our world, it's really, really key. The root of all war is actually the distress inside. And so these elements that I've mentioned of earth, air, fire, water, how do they relate to a me? So the passion in my heart, the fire of love in my heart, this is how fire is alive in me. How I stand and show up in this physical body, and the choices that I choose to make in my life, where I choose to put my attention, how I choose to nourish or destroy life with my words, with my actions. How I show up is key. And that groundedness, this earthiness, this real practical relationship with the physical world. The water element is our relationship with our emotional state, being able to enter into any triggering that's happening and owning that energy, allowing that energy to flow within without projecting it out, and coming back to a place of peace and centered awareness before dealing with the issue at hand, whatever it is. It takes a lot of self-awareness, it takes a lot of self-presence, and it takes a lot of personal truth, being really truthful, ruthlessly truthful with ourselves. And then the element of air, how expansive can we be? How spacious can we be? Being spacious is the quality of love. We all have an ego, and we all have infinite consciousness within us, every single one of us. You can tell when your ego is in control because it contracts. And it gets very self-important. And it tells many, many stories, and it justifies its position. Bless its cotton socks. This is what it does. How can we disarm our ego? Well, awareness, poking fun, laughing at ourselves, taking ourselves more lightly like air, and consciously choosing to expand. And when we're in an expanded state of being, there is a flow and an intelligence that gives rise to itself through us, as us, from us to us. And it connects in such a graceful way. It just flourishes, and it's very, very creative. And what I notice is when my mind thinks it knows, you were mentioning this earlier, when my mind thinks it knows, you can bet your bottom dollar, it's your ego has taken up residence. So just being mindful of your mind. Do I know what I'm talking about? I haven't got a clue. I'm literally opening my mouth and words are flowing out. And so in this spaciousness, in this presence, this is the new paradigm. And it's not possible to act with violence from this place. It's not possible to make unconscious choices from this place. There is a gentleness and a softness to this love that is here, that wants to nourish seeds in each and every one, wants to nourish the love, the light in each and every one, wants to water and hold and care for, to allow growth to happen. And so this is what the Lamas Earth Center is about. It is a center for transformation and healing, whether that's on the physical level, with sustainable means, or the internal level, through healing and becoming conscious, and through connection to the sacred, to what is sacred, and in all the myriad of ways that that shows up for us as unique expressions of the divine. There's a prayer that arose through me. The next slide. There's a prayer that arose through me that I sing with, and I'm conscious of all the time. It's kind of alive in me. And it's about really coming into a place of pure love, coming into a place of heart-centered awareness, living in expansion, living in creativity, living in not knowing, and allowing this love, this beauty, this gentleness, this softness, this feminine, exquisite flow to move through us. And also, this prayer is about deeply honoring and recognizing that every single aspect of life is sacred and holy, actually. And we are the guardians of that. We are the conduits for this to flow into our lives. And so there is a way that we can live gently on the earth. There is a policy available in the physical realm. In the emotional realm, there is the awareness. We can become more emotionally intelligent. We can become more self-aware with the right tools. With all of our lives, we have choice. We all have free will in every single moment. What would you choose to do with yours? Where do you choose to put your attention? What do you choose to do with this sacred gift that is life being lived through you? And can you imagine how it might be if life could flourish all around you and you were being given the reflection of this in every moment? How that might enable you, give you permission to shine and flower as the grace that you are. Because that's what you are. It's what we all are.